Good evening, friends. Myself, Dr. Nidhi Darbari, in My Education Treasure. In my previous video on feedback of micro teaching, I had discussed about the steps, principles, sources, and settings of feedback of micro teaching. Today, in my present video, I am going to tell you about the giving and receiving feedback of micro teaching. Giving feedback. When giving constructive feedback, try to first concentrate on the behavior and not the person. One way is to open by stating the behavior in question, then describing how the supervisor felt about it, and ending with what the supervisor want. This model enables the supervisor to avoid sounding accusatory by using I and focusing on behavior. For example, I haven't seen you in class for a week. I am worried that you are missing important information. Can we meet soon to discuss it? Instead of, you obviously don't care about this course. Second point is balance the content. The teacher should use the sandwich approach. He should begin by providing comments on specific strengths, which provides reinforcement and identifies the things the student teacher should keep doing. Then identify specific areas of improvement and ways to make changes and conclude with a positive comment. This model will help to boost confidence and keep the weak areas in perspective. For example, your presentation was great. You made good eye contact and was well prepared. You were a little hard to hear at the back of the room, but with some practice, you can overcome this. Keep it up. Instead of, you didn't speak loudly. However, the presentation went well. The next point is be specific rather than general. The teacher should avoid general comments that may be of limited use to the student teacher. Constructive feedback is descriptive rather than evaluative. By describing supervisor's own reaction, the student teacher can accept or reject feedback. By avoiding evaluative language, the student teacher will not react defensively. The way in which feedback is given and received contributes to the learning process. Feedback should be honest and direct, constructive, focusing on the ways the student teacher can improve and containing personal observation. For example, rather than saying you weren't clear in your explanation, tell the student teacher where he or she was vague and describe why supervisor had trouble understanding. Similarly, instead of saying, I thought you did a good job, list the specific things that were well. Specific information helps the student teacher in immediate behavior, whereas the general information confuses. The next point is be realistic. Feedback should focus on what can be changed. It is useless for student teacher to get comments on something over which they have no control. The teacher should avoid using words like always and never. Making a comment on the vocal quality of someone whose voice is high pitched will only discourage. If the person's voice had a squeaky quality because he was nervous, the supervisor might say, you might want to breathe more deeply to relax yourself, and that will help to lower the pitch of your voice. Frustration is increased when a person is reminded of shortcomings he and she cannot control. The next point is own the feedback. When offering evaluative comments, use the pronoun I rather than they. feedback is merely supervisor's opinion. The teacher should avoid starting the sentence with you. It is better to start with I, so you can say that I understood the model after you showed us the diagram. Be timely. Feedback is most useful when given immediately after the behavior. Seeking an appropriate time to communicate feedback. Being prompt is key since feedback loses its impact if delayed too long. Delayed feedback can also cause feeling of guilt and resentment in the student teacher. Offer continuing support. Feedback should be continuous process, not a one-time event. After offering feedback, make a conscious effort to follow up. Let the student teacher know that the supervisors are available if they have questions and ask for another opportunity to provide more feedback in the future. Choose one or two things the person can concentrate on. If the teacher is overwhelmed with too many suggestions, they are likely to become frustrated. Receiving feedback. When receiving feedback, the following suggestions should be followed. The student teacher should listen quietly to what the supervisors are really saying, not what student teacher assumes they will say, and not respond to each point. Student teacher can absorb more information if he is concentrating on listening and understanding rather than being defensive and focusing on the response. The body language and tone of voice often speaks louder than words. If student teacher looks distracted and bored, that sends a negative message as well. Attentiveness indicates that student teacher values what supervisor is saying. The next point is that this means being receptive to new ideas and different opinions. Being told that student teacher need to improve is not always easy, but it is an important part of the learning process. Student teacher might feel hurt in response to criticism. Try not to let those feelings dissuade from using the feedback to the best. Make sure student teacher understands what is being said before responding to the feedback. Ask questions for clarification if necessary. Listen actively by repeating key points so that supervisor knows student teacher have interpreted the feedback correctly. If you found the video to be informative and interesting, I request you all to please give a like to my video to motivate me, share it with others and subscribe it so that whenever I upload a new video, you will get a notification. The next point is assess the value of the feedback, the consequences of using it or ignoring it, and then decide what to do because of it. Response is student teacher's choice. Follow up on feedback can be simply involve implementing the suggestions given, or the teacher might want to set up another meeting to discuss the feedback or to resubmit the revised work. The student teacher should take notes while hearing the teacher's comment so that he will have a record to refer to and might discover that the comments that seemed to be the harshest were actually the most useful. If the criticism is vague, ask the supervisor to give specific examples of the point he is trying to make. The student teacher do not have to agree with every comment. Ask other people if they agree with the person's critic. Be practical, tactful, constructive, critical, open towards others' ideas and opinion. Thank you very much for patiently watching the video, and don't forget to subscribe.